I have logged 412 intakes aboard the Hollow Index, and I had stopped expecting any of them to matter to me personally. That is the job. You watch the hold, you record the curve, you return the specimen before the absence is noticed, and you forget the face before the next one arrives. The lattice does not ask its auditors to feel anything about the work. It asks us to be accurate. I had been accurate for 191 years. The 412th intake was logged as subject designation Terra-1, taken from a small blue world the cohort had been quietly cataloging for 3 generations without ever announcing ourselves. Standard non-disclosure collection. Pull 1 specimen, hold it in total sensory deprivation for the baseline interval, measure the unguided psychological curve, return it with the gap edited out of its memory. We had done this to 41 species before this one. We called it the archive. We never called it what it was, because the lattice does not require comfortable language from itself, only useful data. He came up out of the intake field already awake, which was unusual. Most specimens stay unconscious through transition. I watched him on the hold display. A man, unremarkable, dressed in the clothes he'd been wearing on a street that no longer existed to him, in a cell built to deny him every sense he could use to orient himself. No light, no sound but his own breathing, no temperature gradient to tell him which way was out. The cohort designed these cells across 900 years of refinement to produce, in every species we tested, the same curve. Confusion, denial, panic, bargaining, collapse. We called it the despair curve, and it was reliable enough that I had stopped watching for variation. He sat still for 11 minutes, then he started touching the walls. Not searching, not clawing, mapping. Slow, deliberate passes with both hands, memorizing the seams, the temperature of the metal, the give in one panel that didn't quite match the others. I logged it as an unusually composed onset and moved my attention to the adjacent cells, where the curve was running normally. We were holding 3 other specimens that cycle, a chitin-armored Varan scout, a soft-bodied Ashtu juvenile, and an old coral trader who had been through 3 previous intakes and still hadn't learned the cells were soundless from the outside. All 3 were deep in the collapse phase. The coral was praying in a dialect I had translated 4 times before. The Ashtu was making the high keening sound its species makes when it believes it is already dead. I almost missed it when the human started tapping. He'd found that the wall behind him carried vibration to the next cell, the same flaw in the hull baffling I'd flagged in a maintenance report 11 years earlier that the lattice had deprioritized as cosmetic. He tapped a rhythm against it. Simple, even 4 beats and a pause. Then he waited. When nothing answered, he didn't escalate or give up. He just repeated it, patient as a man waiting out a long red light, until the coral, out of sheer reflexive habit, the way you answer a knock even mid-panic, tapped back. I want to be precise about what happened next, because precision is the only thing I have ever been good at, and I intend to keep being good at it even now, telling this to whoever reads an auditor's log after the fact. He built a code. In under 40 minutes, with no shared language, no light, no certainty that anything on the other side of that wall was even capable of understanding intention, he built a 4-beat call-end response that meant, as far as I can reconstruct it, I am here. You are not alone. Stay with me. He taught it to the coral by repetition. The coral, trembling, passed a version of it on through its own wall to the Ashtu. Within 90 minutes, 3 terrified specimens of 3 different species, who had never met, who could not see or smell or hear one another directly, were tapping a shared rhythm through a hull that was never engineered to carry comfort, only data. The despair curve has a name because it is a curve. It has never, in 411 prior intakes, had a floor. This one did. I watched the readings level off and hold, and for the first time in 191 years I did not know what I was looking at. Then he turned toward the wall he hadn't used yet, the one with the sensor baffle, the one no specimen had ever located, because no specimen had ever had the patience or the stillness to notice that the airflow in that corner of the cell behaved differently than everywhere else. He found it with the flat of his hand in under 6 minutes. And instead of trying to break it or hide from it or beg at it the way 2 prior specimens had done when they'd stumbled onto similar tells by accident, he tapped on it. The same 4-beat rhythm. I am here. You are not alone. Stay with me. Aimed deliberately at us. I sat in the auditor's chair for a long time before I logged it. The lattice's protocol has no category for a specimen that initiates contact with its observer. 411 prior intakes generated exactly 0 instances of a captive attempting to reach the watcher rather than escape the cage. The behavioral models we'd built across 9 centuries assumed, correctly, every time, that a frightened creature in the dark wants one thing: out. This one wanted, as far as I could tell, to make sure whoever was listening knew he wasn't going to be the kind of captive who broke. He wasn't issuing a threat or a plea. He was introducing himself to a silence that had given him no reason to believe anyone would answer, on the chance that someone would. I did not answer him. The protocol forbids it categorically, and I had never once been tempted to break protocol in 191 years. I sat with my hand over the console and did not answer him, and that is the part of this I have had the most difficulty living with since. I filed the anomaly upward exactly as procedure required. Full transcript, full physiological curve, full deviation analysis. I expected a routine acknowledgement and a note to adjust the cell baffling. Instead, the lattice went silent on the file for 6 hours, which in 900 years of recorded archive operation had never happened. When the response finally came, it was not an analysis. It was a directive. Suspend all human intake, indefinitely, pending full review of the non-disclosure protocol at the command tier. No further explanation. No timeline. The Hollow Index was ordered to release Terra 1 on the standard schedule with the standard memory edit and to hold position. I have asked the lattice 3 times since why a single data point, 1 specimen, 11 hours of recording, was sufficient to freeze a program 9 centuries old. Each time it has returned the same answer: insufficient basis for disclosure at this tier. I do not believe that is a refusal. I believe it is the lattice doing what I was doing in that chair, sitting very still, holding a number it does not yet know how to file. I performed the release myself, which auditors rarely do personally. Standard procedure required me to wipe the interval from his memory before return. I followed procedure. I have told myself 400 times since that I followed procedure completely, and 400 times I have known that isn't quite true, because before the edit went in I did one thing the log does not record. I kept his name, not the designation. The name he murmured to himself once, low in the dark, the way a man repeats his own name to prove to himself he still has one Daniel. I have no protocol that requires me to remember that, and no protocol that forbids it either, which I have come to understand is the only kind of freedom an auditor of the cohort actually has. The Hollow Index has held position for 104 days. The archive remains suspended. I do not know if the lattice will resume it, redesign it, or end it, and no one above my tier has told me which outcome to expect, or whether the eventual outcome is mine to know at all. I only know that for 9 centuries we built a doctrine on the assumption that any species, alone and blind and afraid enough, will eventually stop looking for anyone else in the dark. We had 411 specimens confirming it. We needed exactly one to confirm we were wrong, and he did it without ever knowing we were the ones who needed convincing. I still run the hold. I still log the curves. But I keep one file open that I am not required to keep, on a man who will never remember tapping on the wall of his own cage to make sure that whoever was listening on the other side of it understood he wasn't afraid of them so much as he refused, on principle, to leave anyone in that dark without an answer. The lattice has not told me what to do with that file. I have decided, on no authority but my own, to keep it anyway.